Hey, this is Garrett Goggin with Golden Portfolio. We're bringing you another interview today, and we've got Andrew Williams from New Pacific Silver with us. And thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Good to be here, Garrett.
Yep, nice to see you again. And I just want to let you know that and Andrew knows this. I've been on the New Pacific and Silver Sand story for years. I was able to, determine their, 200 million plus silver deposit from drill results, apply an economic model on it. And it stands out. It's a pure silver resource. It's worth, I don't know, you start modeling current silver prices at 838 million NAV. It's starting to get interesting. New Pacific has got another operation, Carangas in Bolivia. And one of the interesting stories that I always tell about you guys is, I ask people in the 15th century, the largest cities in the world, right? Right? You know what they were?
I think most guys would guess London or Paris or
Yeah, yeah.
anything in Europe.
What's the third one? You're right about London and Paris. What's the third one?
Potosí, Bolivia.
Potosi. It's Potosi. Why? Because they have a mountain of silver, right? Called Cerro Rico. And New Pacific found this new mountain of silver a few kilometers away from Cerro Rico called Silver Sand. So, that mountain, Cerro Rico, fueled the Spanish Empire for 300 years. I live in Florida. I live in Jupiter. We go to the beach. And there's wrecks out there, and we go to the local museum. There's pieces of eight from Potosi. Like that was the currency of the day for hundreds of years, right?
That's right. It's a really fascinating story.
Yeah,
If you're into silver, you can't ignore Bolivia. I mean, it's too prolific geologically with such a rich history.
exactly. So started on silver sand, about 200 million ounces. I am able, you guys can't do it. You got to use a lower silver price, but I'm able to start modeling in $30 silver, $32 silver, 838 mil NAV. It's going to cost you 358 mil capex to build. And the thing that's interesting about Bolivia, it's got a rich mining history. I've been down there. They have parades, right? Families have been miners for generations and generations. The whole economy is supported by mining. A lot of people shy away from Bolivia. I embrace it because it's a mining society. And then, silver sand, it's a pure silver deposit, right? It's 100% pure. Does that really matter, or is that just like, a retail sales pitch?
Um, like at the end of the day, what matters is your net asset value, right? And so I think the fact that it is pure silver, it certainly attracts a silver-focused investor that has an investment thesis. I want exposure to silver. Most silver is produced as a byproduct of other base metals. So if you want to get exposure to silver through mining operations, you end up exposing yourself to copper or lead or zinc or whatever it is in big proportions. But for the Silver Sand project, it's 100% exposed to the silver price and nothing else. So that pureness is really nice from an exposure perspective. But at the end of the day, it does also offer us benefits, particularly in Bolivia. We'll produce, because it's pure silver, we'll end up with the silver doré bars at the end of the process. So crush, grind, tank leach, and just isolate out the silver and produce those doré bars, which means that we have a finished product. We don't have to then incur large transportation costs, treatment and fining, smelter costs, as well as in Bolivia we get a reduction in our mining tax because we're producing a finished product. So, I mean, it definitely helps us on the economic side at Silver Sand as far as our net asset value calculation is concerned, but also just if an investor is looking for pure silver exposure in the cleanest way, then yes, it does also offer that benefit as well.
Yeah, and then Bolivia, as far as a mining country, I'm looking at your all-in sustaining cost per ton. It's $25 per ton. You go to Mexico, it's $250 per ton. That's one of the things that really pushes your economics. And then the whole doré concentrate stuff. I follow a lot of silver miners. They're producing concentrate. They ship it off to the refiner. They're only getting back 85% of the metal's value. So they're not as profitable as straight gold miners because they're getting hit on their concentrate. So you're able to produce, pure silver doré bars, and you're getting paid 100% on. One thing regarding silver sand, it's got a low strip ratio, right, which helps with economics of, 3 to 1 basically. And then, the grade, I follow grade very closely, and I like the high grade, silver and gold deposits. Silver sand, it's about 100 grams a ton. It's not outstanding, but, explain why that works economically.
Um, so yeah, I mean, who doesn't love grade? I mean, grade is king, but it probably one of about 25 different factors in the equation. There's lots of very high grade operations that lose money. So it's not just about grade. I think, as you said, the strip ratio is really important. So 3 to 1, it's a manageable number for silver sand. I think if you look at the average grade of open pit mines that are being brought online today, they're about a gram gold on a gold equivalent basis. And the Silver Sand project, 105 grams, is about 1.3, 1.35. So about 35% higher grade than your average open pit mine. And you'll move a ton of dirt in an open pit. That's $2.50 a ton versus an underground operation. You're looking at $100 a ton and upwards. So right off the bat, we're open pit mining, which is a very low cost and efficient way of mining. And then there's more to it than just the mining cost. There's also the processing cost. What's the cost of power in Bolivia? It's very cheap. There's solar sand projects, 5 cents a kilowatt hour US, which makes a big difference. And just having a good labor force that can commute in and out of the mine as opposed to, say, a big remote camp up in the Arctic or somewhere like that. So there's lots of different factors that come together. That's why it takes time to do the engineering work to come up with a defendable answer. And you can't just look at one item alone, grade. But if you did want to focus on grade, you got to stack them up against other open pits because underground mining is a different ball game. And if you look at just open pit mining, the Silver Sand project is actually very strong in terms of its grade profile. So all these things, you throw them in the blender, and it makes intuitive sense why the costs come out so nice at Silver Sand.
Yeah, and you look at open pit mine, and a lot of people frown upon it. Mexico basically banned it, but in Bolivia, it's embraced. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. They're like, you want to build an open pit, you get your permits, you're fine to go, right?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the beautiful things about Bolivia is it is, as you mentioned, it does have that mining culture. This isn't like some countries where mining is a concept that the population is a little bit nervous about because for understandable reasons. But I mean they understand the benefits that it brings and has brought to the country over centuries. Of course, not all of it's good, and it's incumbent on us to ensure that this next iteration of new modern mines, continuing a trend that started about 25 years ago, continues to exploit the minerals for the benefit of all stakeholders and leaving a lasting and sustainable benefit. And so, there are templates in Bolivia. I mean, San Cristobal's probably the best example. It's a 50,000 ton a day open pit mine that's been running now for almost 20 years. And so it's a concept that the Bolivian people know quite well.
Right. And so, regarding Bolivia as well, you have, Cerro Rico, and it's, mined by 300 different, private contractors. It's, little rabbit holes that collapse. It's extremely unsafe. And it's been mined that way for a long time. And here you come, New Pacific. You're able to, modern mining, provide, safe jobs for the community, and provide a lot of economic stimulus. And then the other thing regarding Bolivia, Comabol, right? They tried to take over the mining sector, what, 20 years ago? And then in the end, all the mines failed, and the only good ones that were left were taken by, are owned by the top politicians right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely a checkered history with the state-owned mining sector in Bolivia. It's ebbed and flowed over the years. And I think, really, if you look at the operations that were successful in Bolivia recently, like San Cristobal, like San Vicente, like Manquiri, that was Core Mining's project, and a few other ones, really for them, their proposition is that, look, we come in as a foreign company and we bring best practices in terms of safety, environmental benefit, and community benefit. And that's really been the recipe for success in Bolivia is, as a private company, doing things the right way to high standards that, aren't always executed on from some of those state level and state-run actors.
Right. So the state-run actors, they tried it, they failed. Now they know they need foreign direct investment, right? They need professionals to come in and run their mining sector that are specialists, in mining gold and mining silver. They're able to extract the resource, and then through taxes, they're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars for the government, for the communities, for everyone, and all the stakeholders, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's it. It's on paper, it's very simple. The proposition is very clear. I think the practice of it is, and this is what we're engaged in, and we've been engaged with now for well over the better part of a year, is telling that story, right? Because it's one thing to have, statistics and figures on a piece of paper. It's another to have buy-in from a large and diverse set of stakeholders, and that takes a lot of time, attention, one-on-one meetings, follow-up meetings, and a very sustained engagement effort to provide that level of misinformation and build the trust. And that's really the phase that our company is in today at our Silver Sand project is working through that exercise because it does take time, right? It's we're not dealing with robots; these are human beings, and these mines they do permanently change the physical landscape of the area, the social fabric of the area, and so it's important to approach this part of the mine development cycle with empathy and treating people with dignity. And so going through the process, it takes time, but you're right. In paper, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that's what's been holding you up at Silver Sand, right? How big is that community that's right nearby? It's small, right? It's only 50 people.
Yeah, it's about 50 people where the project is located, and most of them don't even live there. They live elsewhere because they've left because there isn't really any real economic opportunity. And then there's a couple other peripheral communities that in aggregate they add up to about 250. But again, similar setup where very few of them actually live within the project area. They're elsewhere, and so it also kind of makes it adds an extra dynamic to the engagement strategy, right? Trying to engage with people that aren't always there and trying to track them down. And so it's kind of part of the reason why it takes a little bit more time. But yes, that's what we're in right now at the Silver Sand project.
And there's some artisanal miners in those communities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to not be in the presence of it, being so close to Potosí and Cerro Rico. I mean, again, it's really a part of the history and the culture of Bolivia. And so, but for us, that's probably the issue that we're working through is the inherent tension between the small scale extraction through artisanal mining versus large scale open pit operation, like two very different concepts. Ultimately, the pie that gets created from an open pit operation is so large that even a small piece dwarfs the entire size of a pie that's available through small scale artisanal mining operations. So again, in theory, it all makes perfect sense, but the real part that takes time and effort and a sustained focus is going through that process with the potentially affected parties and explaining the mechanics of how the like I said, a piece of a much larger pie is bigger than an entire pie as it exists today.
Right. And so this is a financial arrangement you have with the local communities, right? Is it an NSR? Is it a payment or what is it?
It's still under negotiation. Like land lease is a kind of a classic setup where you a dollar per hectare number and a number of hectares, and you come up with a value, and maybe you pay a portion of it up front and the rest of it over the duration of the mine life and other bits and pieces. So that's still, we're in the process right now with the community of going through those parameters. It takes time, and I don't want to give any premature indications of what it may look like at the end of it, because a big part of it is really understanding what people want, right? It's you may think somebody wants something, and then you start to build a deeper relationship, and you find out it might be something else. And so What eventually it manifests as, that's still to be determined. But yeah, of course, at the end of it, the economic compensation is a big part, as well as providing jobs. And these are, be really good jobs. The permanent operations will employ, approximately 500 people, and these are jobs that pay good salaries and provide a good working conditions and benefits, et cetera, for whether it's community members or their family members or children to work in the operation. So yeah, there's really a host of really nice things that can come out of the operation. That's all part of the broader negotiation discussions that we're in.
Right. A lot of towns in Mexico, they sprouted up around the mines, right? In Bolivia, it's just, shacks that are on a hill nearby. And, with the economic stimulus, they create towns and infrastructure and all that with the money. Isn't there some number that makes everyone happy?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of it, yes, it has to be. I mean, again, the value of the project is just so compelling that there is room for a deal, but yeah, it takes time, right? It's yes, everything makes sense in theory, but again, dealing with human beings and just establishing that level of trust, that's what we're working through. But you're absolutely right. There is a numbers and there are numbers that work for everyone. It just takes time to get there.
Now, once you receive community support, how do you see government permitting moving at the national level?
So yeah, going from that's a good question. And so I guess from where we're at now at Silver Sand, so we need to obtain our environmental impact assessment study and our environmental permit. So we've got some environmental baseline data that we've collected. We've got some socioeconomic baseline data that we've collected, and we need a little bit more. And so once I think our kind of what we want to do, we want to get the community agreement completed first, and then go back in and sort of get the rest of what we need as far as the permit submission. But we're very close, and the process in Bolivia is well defined, so we know what we need to get, and we think that the sort of the timeline between getting all the information required for the permit submission after the community agreement is executed is I guess a matter of months probably, and then we'll have the comprehensive. Really, the community agreement's the biggest piece of the environmental permit submission, right? Because you have to have a public consultation that's successful in order to submit that environmental permit. And the community agreement is a critical piece to ensuring that you have a successful public consultation session. So we've got a little bit of work to do before from the community agreement to the permit submission. But then once we've submitted it, the idea is it's unlike other jurisdictions where you might get an environmental permit, but you've still got to do a heck of a lot more negotiation, community engagement, et cetera, to get other agreements. In Bolivia, the process is such where everything is front loaded so that everything's done when you submit your permit in terms of environment and community. So it's because of that dynamic, we expect the permitting process to be fairly forthcoming upon completion of the community agreement.
Okay, excellent. And to shift gears, Carangas. You just came out with a economic study on Carangas. On the upper silver zone, you had the upper silver, you had the lower gold that was a little bit more higher grade, but I guess it costs too much, right, in development to get down to the gold. So you focused on the upper silver, which has got a low strip of 1 to 1. It's got a little bit of lead, a little bit of zinc in there. You throw $30 on there, it's worth about 600 mil NAV. It's going to cost 324 mil to build. But this is a lot easier, right, for New Pacific to build right now.
I mean, I don't know, easier. I think they're both 4 million ton per annum plants. One's got a cyanide leach tanks and will produce Dory bars. The other ones will produce a flotation concentrate, a silver, lead, and a zinc concentrate. But 4 million ton per annum plants. They're both open pit operations. And so one's got, I mean, Carangas has got a lower strip ratio, so we don't have to move as much material to get a ton of ore to the mill versus Silver Sand. But I wouldn't say they're like orders of magnitude. One is easier, one is simpler.
As
They're
far as
both.
permitting?
Oh, as far as permitting, um, they're sort of different, right? Like I think with the Silver Sand project, like we've already got a mining license. We need our environmental permit, which we're working towards. At Corangus, like we're still sitting with an exploration license, which we need to convert into a mining license, which we didn't have to do that with Silver Sand. Silver Sand, we had under the old regime a mining license, and it was grandfathered in under the new mining code change in 2014. So we've got a mining permit at Silver Sand, but Corangus, we were the first ones to apply for an exploration license to be converted into a mining license because we got our exploration license under the new mining code at Corangus. So we've got an extra step that we do need to go through there. So I think, but where we're over in Oruro, there's, I mean, we talk about artisanal mining, like that's just not a thing there. I mean, the deposit is situated a little bit differently, where and it's more disseminated. The grades aren't quite as high. So you take that element of it, it's a little more straightforward there from a community relations perspective. The government of Oruro, which is the state where our Corangus project is in, different than Potosi. In Oruro, they haven't had a mine there since the 90s when Battle Mountain, which was acquired by Newmont, they very successfully ran their Corocoyo mine versus Potosi. They've had several mines developed that are still operating. And so I'd say that the government in Aurora has been even hungrier for this development. So they've been really giving us some really strong support. And federally, the government is proposing to build a new zinc smelter in Aurora, and potentially a third of the feed for that smelter could come from the Corangus project. So there's a very direct drive political incentive beyond your basic taxes and royalties that applies to Corangus that you wouldn't get at Silver Sand. So even though the process is a little bit more there, it's more involved at Corangus. There certainly are a number of really nice tailwinds that we have going from community right through the state level government and up to federal. So um, it's kind of six of one, half dozen of the other, as far as I think permitting goes. And what's really nice about our company is that we're going to have our feet on both gas pedals and moving them forward at the same time. And in an ideal world, we get them both at the same time. But whatever one ends up first, that'll be the project that goes for the project development, whether by us or a potential acquirer. And ideally, yeah, both at the same time. But really, you look at the net present values, and Silver Sand has certainly got the edge over Corangus, but Corangus is no slouch either. Like $500 million of net present value versus 700 at Silver Sand. I kind of use the joke that the goal is to get critical mass and get over that cost of capital hurdle. And whether you're 350 pounds or 300 pounds, you're still overweight. And I think both our projects are overweight in terms of economics. So we're going to keep pushing on both of them, and whichever one gets the permitting finish line first, that'll be the one that will get developed first.
What value drivers do you see for New Pacific over the next year or so?
I think for us, it's the permitting, right? Project advancement with the communities, the environmental impact assessment studies. I mean, that stuff really drives value. I know it's not as sexy or as exciting as, say, drilling fancy holes or building a mine, but man, I tell you, the companies that have done it right, that have gone through the project development path and gotten the permits and put forward a buildable project. I mean, it's been a really strong business case for shareholders, that for the companies that get it well. And once we get there and we have those outcomes, like our share price will be higher than where it is today. Just as a fact. So I think for us, like that's really what we're focused on. That's the core value driver, right? We put out these studies, PFS at Silver Sand and the PEA at Corangus, and the general feedback is like unbelievable projects. I mean, to be able to go in. These are greenfields discoveries, tremendous economics. They're really nice, right? Combined the numbers you were throwing out, like, well clear of $1 billion of combined NAV. But when are you going to get your permit? Like that's really the next step. It's one thing to put an NAV on paper. It's another to have an environmental permit in your hand for something that's buildable. That for us is our key, is focusing in on the permitting, and I'm very, very confident that the value will accrete in our share price as we can continue to make the progress at both projects. And we're perfectly fine with that business model. We've got good cash position, roughly 20 million US in the bank, and so we're well funded to complete the growth program, and really have it such that the next time that we raise additional funds is when we've got some really good news to report on with the permitting at both projects.
Right. What and your major shareholders, Ray Fang and Pan
Yeah,
American,
Pan
right?
American. Yeah. So Silvercorp, Pan American, they collectively own just under 40% of us.
Okay.
And very, very supportive shareholders, very fortunate to have their both financial but also strategic and technical support in our court.
Yeah, let me say one thing. I've been following the silver industry pretty closely for 10, 15 years. There's a lot of miners out there. They don't make any money. They dilute shareholders, management, and bankers get rich, and shareholders get screwed. And I followed Silvercore, Ray Fang's company, right, for 15, 20 years. He is focused on driving earnings per share. That is the only thing that moves the share price higher. And Ray has delivered more to shareholders in the form of dividends than any other silver company I've seen. And he's focused on the right things. He's a major shareholder. He's focused on, driving value for shareholders because he's aligned. He owns a major share stake, right?
Yeah, and I think I mean you see that. Like you look at our share structure, we've got two projects that we discovered, greenfields discovery, so all the money for drilling and development, and still with a good cash position today, and we've got 180 million shares out, which with all that we've accomplished, to still have on a relative basis a tight share count compared to some of our peers in the industry. I mean that's I think part of that DNA that Ray's really instilled in us as a company. And I come from the buy side. I've seen it, right? We've talked before about how dilution is the cancer in this industry, and so yeah, it's something that we're very mindful of. Like we've talked about it at senior management and board level. Do we want to go out and while we're in this quiet permitting phase, drill some holes, do some more studies, generate some buzz, some news flow? And it's like, no, I think for us, we want to focus our resources on what's really going to drive value, which is getting permits for these projects, and so that's what we're going to focus on, and resist the temptation to generate news flow just for the sake of having something to talk about. I think it's much more meaningful to have a higher share price to talk about than a much lower share price, a higher share count, but maybe you've got some drill holes.
Right. Yep, exactly. I agree, and I try to align myself with the value creators in the industry, and you guys have fallen very closely to that model, closely aligned with shareholders, which is great. And then I've got you valued at 236 mil enterprise value. Both projects combined, Silver Sand 838 mil NAV at $30 silver. Silver's trading at 32. Carangas 600 mil. It's like $1.5 billion value, NAV value for Silver Sand. You're only trading at 236 mil. And then, as the price of silver, continues, it's doing well. As it continues to move higher, it's getting more and more interesting every day, right?
Yeah, totally. I think it's a really interesting time to look at the space, and yeah, in particular developers such as ourselves that are trading at fractions of net asset value, and again through disciplined project execution. I mean that's where we're going to close the value gap. I mean that's really why it exists. I think there's skepticism that will get to the finish line, and so it's on us to really to get it done and close that gap, because there's just a huge runway there, a huge air pocket between where we are today and not only net asset value, but most silver producers trade at multiples of net asset value. So yeah, there's certainly a nice runway there, and that's what part of what excites us every day to have the success.
Yeah, and I agree with you because I'm focused on bringing value to Golden Portfolio subscribers, and you get the price of gold at 2,700, you get the price of silver at 32. They're ripping higher. Everyone's like gold's too high, silver's too high, but then you look at companies, the developers, and the ones that are developing projects. You guys haven't moved at all, really. So as the price of silver and gold just keep rising, or even where they are now, and your valuation has not changed. There's a valuation gap right there, and I've never seen valuation gaps like this ever.
Yeah, no, I mean that's something that your I mean your perspective, having a longer term horizon is really valuable, and I mean, I see it too. I mean now is so you sort of be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. I think there's probably still a very high degree of pessimism, certainly in developers such as ourselves. But again, it's how do we cure that? We deliver success with our promises and the permitting, and I mean, quite frankly, we still haven't delivered that yet. As far as we're still working on it at Silver Sand, and we're really just kicking it off at Corangus. So yeah, it's that's our mission right now is to close that gap.
Yeah, good. I'm with you. Thank you very much for your time, Andrew, and I'll be following you closely at New Pacific.
All right, thanks, Garrett. Always nice to talk with you.
Awesome. Nice talking with you. We'll see you.